Hello everyone, welcome back to your show Ask Kaveti. I am Minal, your host, and you can keep on watching Ask Kaveti on our YouTube channel Mana TV, and I hope you have been keeping up with us because we are here every week with new topics and new information. First of all, as always, I would like to introduce our beloved guest, Mr. Kaveti. How are you today?
Hi, welcome back to Mana TV International Ask Kaveti episodes. And in this episode, we're going to talk about domestic violence and visa status for domestic violence spouses and all of those issues. Come on, Ms. Meena, let's start with questions and answers.
Yes, Mr. Kaveti, I think this is a very important topic of domestic violence and losing visa status. So to start off this show, I would like to ask my first question to you, which is between husband and wife in a domestic violence case, how will affect the green card status or H-1B status, H-4, F-2 or L-2 status?
In domestic violence cases, I want you to understand, Meenal, that there are two types of people who come to America. One is people who come with non-immigrant visas, which are H1s and H4s, and people who come with the businesses, L1 and L2s. People also come to the United States with permanent residency or green cards. When there is a domestic violence, if the spouse in domestic violence with green cards, if they are convicted, that means if you're punished, your green card could be cancelled and they will send you back to your home country. Why? Because the offenses under moral turpitude, if you're convicted with a moral turpitude offense in US, that will be a ground for cancellation of your green card and they could send you back to your home country. And in terms of domestic violence, in terms of H4s or H1Bs, if you're a technology worker, husband is causing some violence on the wife and the wife reports as against the husband, what will happen if there is a conviction or if you're a battered spouse, that means if you're a victim in an abused family, the wife can apply for an H4 extension. Also, she can also get a work authorization. She will not be thrown out of the country. And if she cooperates with the prosecution in US in convicting the husband, she could also get a green card under the special immigrant visa, which is also called battered spouse syndrome. You can apply for a immigrant visa. You will get a work authorization and a green card eventually. In terms of L2 is also the same situation. In terms of other visas, one has to be careful. If you're a citizen, if you're convicted, you're not going to be thrown out because you're a citizen of US. So that is the distinction you have in H4s and L2s and in terms of green card holders.
So people who came here on a work permit and then one party goes back to India, what will happen with the criminal case in place?
When you are having a criminal cases, first of all, you should and you must cooperate with the government, whichever the state or whichever the city or even federal government, because there are different types of offenses in this country in US and depends upon what offenses you're charged with or indicted with. You have to cooperate with the government, you have to cooperate with the court and police or enforcement authorities. And if you abandon and if you go back to your home countries, there are certain offenses, there are certain treaties with America and other countries. They can even bring you back into United States forcefully by court order or by a warrant. And in some cases, if there are misdemeanors or minor cases, what happens if you go back to your country, the case will be there and they could wait for a little longer by the court, and if they don't find the accused or a criminal defendant, they could drop the case. Sometimes they would take off the case, signing off, but the case will be sometimes pending. And sometimes what happens if there are criminal cases, serious cases, they could even report to the immigration. Whenever you come into the country, you could be arrested at the airport. But if you go back to your home country and if you don't have any intention of returning back to United States, then there's a possibility that the US government might drop the charge or they might close the case. It depends upon the prosecution and depends upon the case to case.
Mr. Kaveti, a lot of the times what happens is that parents buy a property in the kid's name. So if the property is under the kid's name, what will happen to it if the parents are going through a divorce?
Most of the times in a divorce case, the property, whether you are having it in India, overseas, or in America, or Pakistan, or Bangladesh, what they see this, whether there's a property, there are two types of properties. One is called as separate property, and second is called marital property. And even if it is a separate property or a marital property, sometimes in overseas countries like India, they're called inherited properties and they're called self-acquired properties. The children would be the legal representatives and they would have a share whether you have earned the property self-acquired or whether you have inherited the property. Whether it is a separate property or a marital property, children would have a share. You could definitely claim a share in the property for the kids.
So let's say that a husband came here as a dependent and has a company and a work permit and they're having a divorce, then what will happen to the wife and will she get a share in the business?
A wife will, if the company is established in US during the marriage, yes, that amounts to the marital property, whether it is a business, whether there are stocks, whether there are any earnings through job or businesses, or sometimes even through lottery or some winning in games or in a casino, whatever, that amounts to the marital property. And if it is a marital property, yes, the property will be distributed equitably. It is called sometimes common law property, sometimes it's also called community property. They will have an equitable distribution of property. That means, yes, it's not equal, it's called equitable distribution of property. Both the spouses would have share if it is a marital property acquired during the marriage.
A lot of the times what happens is that when a husband and wife are fighting, someone or one of the kids might be recording the fight. So my question is, will that be admissible in evidence in a divorce case or domestic violence case?
It's a wonderful question, Meenal. Yes, there are two types. I want the viewers to understand that in US there are two types of laws. One is called federal law and second is called state law. Under the federal law, under the wiretapping laws, if one of the party consents or one of the party agrees that you're recording a telephone or a voice conversation when both parties are fighting or they're doing a video, they're recording, if one party consents and one party knows and it is admissible and it's okay, that means it's lawful. If the other party doesn't, and state courts, they're not admissible, and the federal law, it's admissible. And in other countries like India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, because especially in India there are no laws specifically for this, the law is not that developed, and most of the times what happens when there is a husband and wife fighting, most of the times husbands records the conversation or wives records the conversation and they will send it on a WhatsApp to their parents, and their parents, if they want to take a revenge on the other party, they go and file a complaint with the police and they will disclose this video or telephone conversation with Indian police. The Indian police, they do take cognizance and file cases as against the spouses, and this evidence is admissible in Indian courts, and so as in Pakistan and Bangladesh and other third world countries. The law is not that developed, especially in India. But in US, it's some places they're admissible, in some situations they are not admissible. So under the federal law, these are all called wiretapping laws, and without the consent when you do it, some states it's unlawful and it's also a felony. Some jurisdictions they are admissible, some are not inadmissible. And especially in America, if one of the party knows that the other party is recording, it's admissible. But can they use it in evidence into the domestic law or in divorce law? that is again the state law. We have to check up the state rules of evidence and state rules of criminal procedures. And sometimes courts also, they have their own rules in this country. So it's a very difficult answer to give that, Minal. So they have to check it up with the local lawyers.
Mr. Kaveti, I'm sure you have faced a lot of these domestic violence cases, and you being an international lawyer, you might have faced some difficulties in these cases, or whatever the case may be. So, have you ever faced a case where the husband is making a lot of money and not giving enough to the wife, and now she's back home in India? What happens then? What is your opinion on that?
This all, Meenal, this all comes under the discovery. The beauty is we were just handling a German case, and we have some cases in UK too. Every country has a certain formula for giving a maintenance, spousal maintenance, out of the earnings of the husband, and there's certain formula for children to be given child support. It depends upon state law. It also depends upon the country. Especially in US, every state has got its own formula based on the consumer price index, and based upon their earnings, and based upon their lifestyle also sometimes. There have been cases in America that the husband is supposed to maintain the standards of life what they had before separation. Let's say if somebody is a Wall Street professional and they were living in Wall Street and they're living in Manhattan, they're going to private schools. So if the wife and children, they have gone back because the husband is earning very high income, the courts do expect that the wife, even though they go back to India or any other part of the world, the courts expect that the child should get the same standard of living and same standard of education and same standards of medical health, insurance and other things. So the courts look into many factors: the income of the parties, the age of the wife, the age of the children, their standard of living, their earlier lifestyle, and many other factors when courts are deciding the child support and the maintenance. So it's a very dry area to answer, and it also depends upon the cost of living as well. Sometimes somebody has moved to UK. UK is more expensive because the pound value is more higher than US dollar, and somebody's moved to Europe. That Europe dollar is more higher in value in terms of compared to America. So there are a lot of factors the court will look into before awarding a maintenance or a child support. It's not penalizing, but it's the obligation by the other spouse who is earning to obligation and a moral and a legal responsibility to take care of their wife and their children if they're overseas as well, until the children attains the age of 21 and until their wife gets remarried. And some states in America, the beauty is, if you take the state like Texas, they said that marriage is a social contract, and they said that you don't have to maintain your wife after you divorce. So there are some states they are not in favor of awarding maintenance to wives once you got divorced. But there are some states they indicate that even after divorce, the husband or a wife has an obligation on the spouse to maintain until they get remarried.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kaveti. As always, you have some incredible information to share with our viewers and myself. I learned a lot today. And a topic like this, domestic abuse violence, which is affecting so many families all over the world, is very important to learn about. I hope you guys learned something new, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, we are here weekly with new episodes and new topics in our show Ask Kaveti, which you can find on our YouTube channel Mana TV. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel and join our Facebook group. See you next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Meenal, for wonderful questions, and thanks to the team of Mana TV International. And thanks, viewers, for tuning yourselves to Mana TV International and Ask Kaveti episodes. We're going to come up with more series like this, and these series and these shows are only done for information and education purposes. We're not trying to solicit any business out of this, and please don't consider this as an attorney-client relationship, and these are not legal advisors. These are just only information purposes. And if you have any specific question, if you have any specific legal problem, contact your local attorneys who are competent in that particular law, because there's all specialties are there: immigration specialty, criminal law specialty, and family law specialty. International law is also a specialized area. So get in touch with the local lawyers in your town or county or state for specific legal needs, and tune yourself with this further shows. We're going to come up with new episodes in new areas of law. And thank you very much for tuning in.